Hey guys, welcome to week number 6 of the TheH0RR0Rman's Slashback challenge. Now, each week, Joe sets up a slasher theme for us to review, and we find a film that fits that theme and review it. It's kind of redundant, but oh, what are you gonna do? And the theme for this week is local slashers, and by that he means either a film that was produced in your home state or your hometown. And if you can't do that, at least a film that was done in your country, depending on which country you're from, like Australia or New Zealand or something like that, South Africa. Okay, now this is a little backstory here. About 10 years ago, the state of Michigan was trying to lure in the film industry to help create jobs. So they created a tax incentive. And during this time, a whole host of films were produced in the Michigan and Detroit area. And two of the films happened to be slasher films. The one film was Scream 4, and the other one is this one here that I have chosen today. And that's the Butterfly Effect 3. And the reason why I went with this movie over Scream 4 was because this film was actually shot in the city which I was born in, which was Detroit. And there's a lot of Detroit in this one. It's not like a lot of the other films that they're shot and take place in Detroit, where they just come and they just shoot downtown real quick and then they go off to Vancouver or LA or whatever, or Dallas, like the RoboCop film. This one was actually shot in Detroit. I did talk to one of the location managers. They came into the place where I used to work, my old office, and told us they were making this film. All right, let me get into the plot of this movie real quick. And before I do that, I have to address the elephant in the room with this movie. This is an in-name only sequel to the first two films. But also, the first two films weren't slasher movies. They were more like sci-fi drama movies. Like the first film was about a young man who can go back in time, and the way he does it is by concentrating on like a picture or his journal. But when he goes back in time, it's his consciousness that goes back into his younger body, and then he can affect the present by whatever he does. And it's usually for the negative, and that's probably pretty much been the theme of these movies. Now this one, the main character has found a way to make money from his ability. And essentially what he does is he goes back in time to witness murders, then comes back to the present, and he has a detective buddy, and he tells him like who did the murder, and then he gets paid. But unfortunately for him, his ex-girlfriend, or at the time his girlfriend, was murdered, and her sister comes to him for help because she finds out that he's been solving all these cases, and she wants him to solve his girlfriend's murder. Now this film is where it gets kind of tricky in this film, because this film assumes you've seen one of the other two films, which was kind of a mistake. Now in this movie, when he does this, he essentially has to submerge himself in a bathtub full of ice. It's almost like a sensory deprivation type of thing, so he can astral project himself into his younger body. And the film doesn't do a really good job of explaining this. Like the film first starts, and you watch him witnessing a murder, and then you see him start to do this weird shifting thing, which means he's going back into the present. Now, in this film, he uses his sister to help him, but he also has a mentor, and he knows about what he can do. And I'm assuming this was done because they wanted to be able to discuss the rules of what you can do and what you can't do, which this film does kind of poorly. Now, there is like a tragic backstory that between the brother and sister, and it's something that the film probably should have started with, because that would have really helped along with what was going on. So if people hadn't seen the first two movies, they wouldn't understand that what he's doing. Because like otherwise you'd think he was physically going back in time with his whole body, but he's not. He's just putting his mind is going into his younger body, and then he's doing stuff. So anyways, he decides to go back and witness his girlfriend's murder. And of course he screws up. And when he comes back, he finds out not only was his girlfriend murdered, but there's also been 8 other murders since then, and there's now a serial killer. And it's because he went back in time and he's got to solve this. So that's pretty much the plot of this film. Now, this is a film that I reviewed many years ago when I first started up my channel, and I was kind of curious to see if I still like this film because I was a little bit biased because, you know, film shot locally with a lot of locations that I recognize. It's kind of hard not to like it even if you don't. But I watched it again and I did enjoy it as much as the first time. Now, this film is a lot gorier than I remember, but at the same time, there isn't as many kills as I remember. There's only really a couple of kills, and they are pretty gory, which is good. Um, Another thing too is this film kind of plays like a giallo movie, which is I think really really awesome as well. Because it is like a mystery and you're trying to figure out who the killer is, and of course you get the whole thing where he's going back in time trying to solve it, and every time he comes back he makes things worse for himself and every people around him. So that was kind of interesting as well, like keeping with the theme. Um, so I guess that's pretty much it. I hope I didn't forget anything. I'll probably go back and watch this. I've already filmed this review a couple times now because each time I do it, I miss something. Because I wanted this review to be different than my original review, and I think it pretty much is. Um, so as always, I'm going to put a link to Joe's review in the description box. I'm really interested to see what films were shot in his area. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.